Your liquor tax is decreasing from 10% to 7%. So in HST lingo, instead of a combined 15% or 5% GST plus a 10% provincial tax, it's on a combined basis reducing down to 12% effective July 1. However, your meals at a restaurant are now subject to the 12%. There was previously no GST on the meal portion. You're now charging 12% on the meals. The provincial portion of the hotel tax, and that's why there's an asterisk on that, is eliminated and being replaced with the HST. There are still municipal hotel taxes that are in place and will continue to be in place. And if I recall, the notice said that they're going to be revisiting this over the next 2 to 4 years in terms of if they eliminate it, how they replace that revenue to the various municipalities. So here's your point of sale rebates for BC HST purchases. So your books, your children's stuff, your diapers. The one that's in bold, and that's the one that's unique to BC because we have the carbon tax out here, you will not pay HST on gasoline, diesel, marine fuel, any type of motive fuel. We get into further on, your energy costs, like the light and heat of building, natural gas, steam, that type of source of energy will have HST on it. Disclosure requirements, again, think of GST. So if you're selling something today and charging the GST, you have to put on your invoice your GST number, and whether the amount is tax included or whether it's this amount plus the 5%. That's all stays the same except the rate gets bounced up to 12. Currently, again, no legislation, but currently we do know of 2 changes to the GST return. I go into more detail further in this presentation about recaptured ITCs, where large businesses have to pay back certain input tax credits or ITCs that they've claimed on expenses. There will be a box for BC recaptured ITCs. But the big question I often get is, will they split out the tax collected columns? Will I have a GST column, a BC HST column for the 7% collected, and Ontario for the 8% collected? If you look at your return and you go back to your business, you'll see that it's line 105, it says GST, HST collected. And I go back to my example, we take my computer and ship it to Halifax, we charge 13% today. We put that 13% on line 105 with all our 5% GST. We anticipate that to remain the same, that you'll still have just the one box on your tax collected. But we also know that the Ontario government is lobbying for that to be split up in a portion, so that when you report 7% BC in a separate box, BC government would get that amount. Question begs itself is, how does the BC government going to get its money if it's all lumped under one box? I'm a business in Alberta, I do 30% of my business in BC, and I've got a mixture of 12 and 5 and some 13s and so on in the one box. How do the governments get their money? There's Stats Canada is hired behind the scenes to go in and do surveys of businesses by industrial codes and say, if I'm an oil and gas company in Edmonton, I do X% of my business in BC, and they use these estimates to say, okay, the BC government should be getting this amount of HST to them and cut a check on that basis. Back to where I started, Ontario wants that changed. They do want us to report it on the separate boxes. The rules with regards to when tax is due, again, think GST, don't think PST, and GST HST is due the earlier of an invoice being issued or otherwise amounts becoming paid or payable. Fairly straightforward. Same thing with your input tax credit or ITC eligibility. You're able to claim that input tax credit as soon as it becomes payable or you've paid it. So now we're 6 weeks away. Not only do we have to get ready for July 1st, but there are some things we should be doing from May 1st onwards, and just kind of break these up through the various rules. So these are for anything that happens after June 30th. HST is going to apply if the payment's received after June 30th or on or after July 1st. You're required to charge 12%. That's fairly well known and fairly basic. If you took a prepayment prior to October 15th for something that was to occur in July, there would be no obligation to charge HST and no requirement for the person purchasing it to do any form of self-assessment. GST and PST would apply as per normal. October 15th is a magical date. It's when the notice on transitional rules were issued, and that's why we use that date. Between October 15th and April 30th, again, if you take a prepayment for something you're going to do in July or August, you don't charge the HST, but you do charge the GST and PST as applicable, and you're done. From May 1st, so the time we're in now, between now and June 30th, if you take a prepayment, so someone is booking a hotel room today and paying you by credit card for a stay they're going to have on July 20th, you have to collect the 12% HST. And I'm not sure if I have a slide coming up with the reporting of it, I'm sure I do, but I'll cover it right now. There's 12% HST you collect from that customer. You're going to, if this happens today, you're going to report your 5% GST on your May GST return. You're going to hang on to that 7% BC component and report it on your July return. And this is just to get us through this 2 months. Again, how does the BC government get their money? They're going to get their money on returns filed for July. If you pay it now, you report that 7% now, the BC government won't get their money. They'll be a little sensitive to it. And so although you're paying the government early, our experience in the Atlantic provinces in 1997 is that auditors did audit this because provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland wanted their money. So they look for this kind of thing. Specific rules, there's rules on real property, returns of tangible goods, so I'm going to get into a little bit. Intangibles, the general rule for intangibles, so these are rights, royalties, you can renew your software subscription, that kind of thing. It's a hard and clean June 30th, July 1st rule. So if you renew your computer system software license on June 25th, you're going to pay GST, you're not going to pay HST, no requirement to self-assess. So this is a little bit of a timeline that we have. Given that we're, May 19th, I think that we can deal with the area of April 30th to June 30th, and it's just as I described. This is for delivery of goods, so this isn't a hotel stay per se, but say I took an order to deliver this table on July 15th and I got payment for it today, I would charge the HST. If I took this order before April 30th, I wouldn't charge the HST, I would charge the PST. If my customer was a bank or a university, someone who couldn't claim back HST in full, they would actually have to self-assess the HST and claim back the PST refund. So these were some of the goofy things going on up until April 30th. That pretty much covers it. For you guys who claim full ITCs, if you made a prepayment on your expense side up until April 30th, there is no requirement to self-assess that HST component because you're going to claim it all back anyway. Your continuous supplies, which is your natural gas, your electricity, that type of thing that flows through and you're billed periodically, those service providers will bill you based on an estimate of the percentage that is delivered after June 30th versus an estimate of how much is delivered before June 30th. If you bought some new equipment, new computer system that was installed on June 20th, again, the supplies occurring before July 1st, you wouldn't pay the HST, but if that supplier has to come out and do training or installation or maintenance or any type of those services, you might get one invoice for all of that, say for $25,000. They are required to separate the components up to the actual good being delivered and then the services being delivered after June 30th and charging HST on the components that are being delivered afterwards and charge HST on that as appropriate. So there's a deeming provision that separates this one invoice into separate supplies that causes different tax rates to occur. Once again, when we get through this transition period by the fall, no one will care about these rules, but it's just to get us through this at this time.